Her heels clicked against the cold marble floor like a countdown to something inevitable. Everyone stared, but not with admiration, with contempt. In a lobby filled with polished shoes, designer suits, and award-winning smiles, Isabel's presence felt like a mistake, a stain, an interruption. Security? A sharp voice called from behind a velvet rope. Who let the cleaning staff through the front entrance? Isabel froze. She wasn't cleaning today. Not anymore. She wasn't wearing her faded uniform or the name tag she hated. Today, she wore her only blazer, a thrift store find with shoulder pads slightly too wide. And in her trembling hands, she held a file. A thick one that could tear everything apart. She cleared her throat. "I have an appointment with Mr. Carrington." A laugh erupted from the receptionist's desk. It echoed, ugly and performative. "Sweetie," the woman sneered, "Mr. Carrington doesn't see people like you." But she would see him. She had to. 6 months earlier, Isabel's world was quieter. Still humiliating, still hard but quieter. She worked the night shift at Carrington Industries, polishing glass, scrubbing marble, and removing the traces of power she could never touch. The CEO himself, Richard Carrington, had never once looked her in the eye. And yet, she knew his life in detail because she cleaned up after it. The boardroom where he yelled at weak executives. The gym where he beat a punching bag like it owed him money. The penthouse office where he drank imported whiskey and burned documents late into the night. He was untouchable. A man who played God in a steel tower. And yet, it was here, under his empire, that Isabel found something. It happened on a Thursday. She was cleaning the executive wing when she noticed the shredder was full overflowing, really, and some strips had fallen behind the bin. She crouched to pick them up, intending to toss them, until she noticed a name, Maria Valdez, her mother's name. Heart racing, she gently gathered every strip and stuffed them into her cleaning cart. It took her 3 nights, but she pieced it together. A contract, confidential, dated 1996. It was a non-disclosure agreement. Her mother's signature was shaky. But next to it, in hard ink and cold precision, was Richard Carrington's name. The document was clear. A settlement. A payoff. And then, buried in the legal jargon, a line that stopped her breath, regarding the child resulting from the incident of October 1995. The floor beneath her seemed to tilt. She wasn't just the janitor's daughter. She was his daughter. Back in the present, Isabel's knuckles whitened around the file. She didn't care if they called security. She didn't care if they laughed. What she had in that folder could ruin him. Or maybe it could make him see her. Finally. "Let her up," said a voice from behind. The room hushed. Benjamin, Richard Carrington's personal assistant, approached. He didn't smile. He never did. But his eyes scanned the file in Isabel's hands with recognition and something like fear. "Mr. Carrington will see you now," he said, and turned. The elevator ride was silent. Isabel's heart thudded in her ears. She could smell the cologne Benjamin wore, sharp and expensive. She could feel the temperature drop as they climbed. On the 47th floor, the doors opened to a world made of glass and arrogance. Sunlight poured in. Power echoed in the silence. She stepped forward like a ghost returning home. Richard Carrington stood by the window, hands behind his back. His hair was silver now, but his stance was still king-like. He didn't turn around. "You have 5 minutes," he said. "Speak." Isabel took a breath. "I think I deserve more than 5 minutes, considering." He turned. His face was unreadable, cold. There was no flicker of recognition, no paternal instinct. Just calculation. Considering what, exactly? She walked to his desk and laid the file down, opening it. "Considering I'm your daughter." For a moment, just a flicker, his jaw tightened. A muscle twitched. she continued, her voice steadier than she felt. Maria Valdez, October 1995. I found the NDA, the settlement, the silence you paid for, but I'm not interested in money. I want acknowledgement. The truth. Carrington slowly walked toward her, eyes narrowed. You come here, dressed like this, with this ... fantasy. You think that gives you power? No, Isabel said. You think power is measured in silence. I don't. The air crackled. Richard glanced at the file again, then at her. And if I say you're lying? She stepped closer. Then I'll show the media. The board. Everyone. You've built a legacy on lies. I wonder how long it'll stand. Silence, and he laughed. Not loud, not joyful. A hollow chuckle that held no humor. You're smart, he said. I'll give you that. But this world doesn't reward truth. It rewards leverage, and you just gave me yours. Isabel didn't flinch. I came prepared. She reached into her bag and placed a USB drive beside the file. Your assistant? The one who's too loyal? He's not. He gave me access to your private server backups. There's more. Carrington's face darkened. Blackmail, he said flatly. No, she replied. Survival. They stared at each other. Then, finally, Richard sat down. He poured a glass of water. And for the first time, he looked at her not as a threat, not as a stranger, but as a possibility. Richard Carrington leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes piercing. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was full of weight, of choices that could no longer be ignored. What exactly do you want? He asked. Isabel held his gaze. A seat at the table. He arched a brow. You think this is some fairy tale? That you can walk into this office, wave a forgotten document, and suddenly become a Carrington? No, she replied calmly. I don't want your last name. I want your respect, he scoffed. Respect is earned. I earned it scrubbing your floors at 2 a.m. for minimum wage, while you pretended I didn't exist. His smirk faltered. She continued, voice steady. You want to protect your legacy? Then acknowledge the parts of it you buried, starting with me. Carrington swirled the glass of water in his hand, eyes never leaving hers. You're not the first person to come into my life with a tragic story in a flash drive. But you may be the first one who actually did her homework. You're not denying it, she said. No, he replied. But don't mistake that for weakness. I don't, Isabel said. I've seen your weakness. It's fear. Fear of the truth. He stood suddenly. Enough. You want to play business? Fine. Prove it. He walked to a shelf behind his desk and pulled out a black folder. Tossed it on the table. Carrington Industries is launching a new vertical luxury eco-living. It's a PR move, but it's got teeth. We're weeks away from finalizing contracts in Brazil, India, and Spain. The team handling it is sloppy. I'm giving you 48 hours to fix their proposal. If it's better than what they delivered, I'll consider involving you. If not, he tapped the NDA copy with a finger. This never happened. She blinked. You're giving me a test? He smiled. I'm giving you a chance, which is more than your mother ever got. That cut deeper than she expected. But she didn't flinch. Where do I work? Ben will show you. 2 floors down, Isabel found herself in a cold glass room labeled Strategy Overflow. It wasn't so much an office as it was a punishment. 1 chair, 1 desk, 1 dying ficus. Benjamin stood by the doorway. You really think you're ready for this? Isabel pulled out her laptop. I cleaned this company from top to bottom. I know how it works better than the people who sit on leather chairs all day, pretending they matter. He gave a dry laugh. You sound just like him. She looked up. Is that a compliment? No, it's a warning. And with that, he left. Isabel opened the folder and began scanning the project details. It was a mess half researched, filled with vague environmental promises and buzzwords. It read more like a high school presentation than a billion-dollar pitch. By midnight, she had already rewritten the executive summary and restructured the budget. By morning, she'd built a full competitive landscape and aligned the branding to global standards. She didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every moment felt like it was borrowed from a life she'd been denied. And yet, she felt alive. At 8 a.m., she printed the deck, bound it, walked up to the executive conference room, and laid it on the table just as the strategy team arrived, all confused stares and mocking smiles. "You're not authorized to be in here," one of them snapped. "She is now," Carrington said, entering behind her. They fell silent. "She's leading this pitch," he said, without further explanation. No one challenged him. That's how power worked here, not through logic, but through fear. Isabel walked them through every slide, every stat, every gap she'd closed. And when she finished, the room was quiet, not out of kindness, out of shock. Carrington spoke last. "Much better than the garbage you brought me last week. Consider her part of the team, effective immediately." As they left the room one by one, some offered her fake smiles. Others didn't look at her at all, but one voice lingered. "Nice presentation, janitor," whispered a tall man in a Navy suit, Elliot Blackwell, VP of Development and Carrington's protege. She met his gaze. "I'm not here to clean up anymore." "We'll see," he muttered, and walked out. 3 weeks passed. Isabel became a permanent fixture in the glass tower. Her office got bigger, her coffee stronger, the glances less hostile, though never quite welcoming. She excelled, closed deals, innovated strategy. The board noticed, investors noticed, even the press noticed, calling her Carrington's secret weapon. But no one knew the truth, not yet, and Carrington liked it that way. "You're valuable because you're invisible," he said one night as they shared a drink in his office. "Stay that way." She studied him. "You're ashamed." "I'm practical," he replied. "If the world finds out I have an illegitimate daughter from a janitor I paid to disappear, the narrative writes itself. I built this company with precision. I won't let scandal take it down." "But what about what I want?" she asked. He poured another drink. "You wanted a seat. You got it. But not as your daughter." He looked at her, cold, final. "No." One evening, she returned to her apartment to find an envelope slipped under her door. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Her mother, Maria, in a hospital bed. The date stamped in the corner, 2 months before her death. On the back, a note. "You're not the only one digging into the past." Isabel stared at the photo until her hands trembled. She'd never seen this image before her mother frail, hooked to wires and tubes. The date confirmed what she'd feared. It was taken shortly before her death. But who took it? And why send it to her now? She flipped the picture over again. The handwriting wasn't Richard's. Too jagged. Too personal. Someone knew. Someone was watching. She picked up her phone and dialed the only person who might have answers. Benjamin speaking. "I got something," she whispered. "A photo of my mother. From her last hospital visit. Anonymous envelope. No note except one line. You're not the only one digging into the past." A pause. "I'll be there in 10, he said. Benjamin arrived at her apartment with the urgency of someone who'd already feared this moment. "Let me see it." She handed him the photo and watched his expression shift. Not shock, recognition. "You know who sent this," she said. "I have a suspicion," he replied. "But if I'm right, this goes deeper than your father." She crossed her arms. "Talk." He looked around, then leaned in. "You've made enemies. Elliot Blackwell, for starters." He was being groomed to take over, before you showed up. Now Carrington talks about you like you're the future. That doesn't sit well with Elliot or the board. He's threatened? Benjamin nodded. And dangerous. Elliot's father was Richard's mentor. There are ties that go way back. If anyone had access to old files, photos, it'd be him. Why bring up my mother? To destabilize you. You're not just fighting for a role now. You're fighting to exist in this world. And Elliot knows how to push pain. Isabel clenched her jaw. Then let him push. I don't break. At work the next day, tension clouded every corridor. Rumors had started swirling whispers that Carrington was preparing to name his successor. Names were flying. So were knives. Elliot intercepted Isabel outside the elevator. Heard you've been digging through medical records. She didn't flinch. Heard you've been mailing threats. He smiled, slow and smug. I don't threaten. I prepare. For what? For the fall. Yours. She leaned in. If I fall, I'll make sure you're underneath me. He chuckled and stepped aside. You really are his daughter. That afternoon, Carrington summoned her. I'm going to Brazil next week to finalize the Amazon deal. You're coming with me. She blinked. I thought Elliot was handling that. He was, until I realized his pitch was all flash and no substance. Yours was airtight. They respect intelligence there, not arrogance. She raised an eyebrow. You're choosing me, then? I'm testing you, he said. There's a difference. The trip was brutal. Endless flights. High-stakes meetings. A language barrier she wasn't fluent in. But Isabel held her own. She negotiated renewable energy terms. She proposed local labor protections. She even corrected a translation error during a live presentation that could have cost them millions. Carrington watched her, studied her, but said little until the final night. They were on the hotel rooftop, overlooking the São Paulo skyline. You surprised me, he said. She sipped her drink. That was the point. He nodded. When I met your mother, I was 27. Angry. Ambitious. Careless. I never expected her to keep the baby. You offered her money to disappear. I offered her peace. She refused it. She gave up everything for me, Isabel whispered. Yes, he said. And maybe that's why you're dangerous. She turned to him. Because I didn't come from your world? No, because you survived without it. When they returned to New York, the board called an emergency meeting. Elliot had filed a formal grievance alleging nepotism, fraud, and improper promotion. He demanded an internal audit. The room was packed. Executives, lawyers, shareholders. Elliot stood at the front, confidence dripping from every word. We cannot allow this company to be manipulated by unvetted individuals claiming rights they haven't earned. Carrington Industries is not a charity. Isabel remained seated until he was finished. Then she stood. My name is Isabel Valdez. I was born in 1996. My mother worked in this building. My father ignored us for decades. And yet here I am, not because of blood, but because I did the work. She turned to the board. Every proposal you've praised in the last 2 months I wrote. Every deal we closed I led. If this company is about merit, then I've earned my place. A murmur swept the room. One board member stood, an older woman. Let's see the numbers. Carrington nodded. They're on your desks. Detailed comparisons. Isabel's results speak louder than lineage. For a long moment, the board flipped through the papers. Then silence. Until the chairwoman spoke. Miss Valdez, you will retain your role. Mr. Blackwell, your grievance is dismissed. Elliot turned red. This is a mistake. No, Carrington said. The mistake was underestimating her. Later that evening, Isabel walked into her office to find another envelope on her desk. No postage, no name. Inside was a copy of her birth certificate, but this time it had been altered. Her father's name had been changed. Unknown. Underneath, a note. Even kings can erase blood. Isabel stared at the altered birth certificate, her hands tightening around the page. They weren't just trying to intimidate her now. They were trying to erase her. Systematically. Surgically. She looked at the note again. Even kings can erase blood. But it wasn't signed. She stormed into Benjamin's office and slammed the paper on his desk. They're rewriting my existence now. Benjamin glanced at it, brow furrowing. This isn't just about control anymore. It's about annihilation. Can he really do this? She asked. Legally alter a document like this? Benjamin hesitated. With the right people in the right offices, yes, at least temporarily. Temporarily is enough, she muttered. If I lose public recognition, I lose leverage. I become invisible again. He leaned forward. Then we go louder. She frowned. Louder? Expose the truth. Publicly. Before he or whoever's doing this strips you of your voice entirely. Richard won't protect me. No, Benjamin said. But you can protect yourself. That night, Isabel called a journalist. Not just any journalist, Maya Cortez, a sharp, relentless investigative reporter who had taken down politicians and pharmaceutical giants with the same cold precision. They met at a small bar in Brooklyn. Isabel handed over the USB, the contract, the photos, the notes, everything. This story, Maya said slowly, could burn Carrington Industries to the ground. I'm not asking for revenge, Isabel said. I'm asking for air. I can't breathe under their shadow anymore. Maya nodded. You'll be anonymous at first, until we verify. Fine. But deep down, Isabel knew, if this story came out, there'd be no going back. 3 days passed. At Carrington headquarters, everything moved with the illusion of calm. But beneath the surface, pressure built. In the executive lounge, whispers were sharper. Stares longer. Documents no longer sat unattended. And then it happened. The article dropped. Front page. Is CEO's secret? Illegitimate heiress or corporate pawn? By Maya Cortez. Photos. Screenshots. Quotes. The NDA. The birth records. Everything. Isabel's face wasn't shown, but to those inside the company, it was obvious. Carrington's reaction was swift. She was summoned. Again. He stood by the window, calm but venomous. You went to the press. I warned you I wouldn't be silent. You're not protecting the truth. You're building a narrative. She stepped closer. You built yours with silence and fear. I'm building mine with proof. He turned slowly. Do you think this helps you? You've alienated the board. The shareholders are spooked. Our stock dropped 8 points in a day. And yet, she said, the world knows I exist. He stared at her. You want to be me so badly, Isabel, but you're still acting like a janitor. She smiled softly. Then I've already surpassed you, because I clean up what others try to bury. The fallout was brutal. The board split into factions. Some supported Carrington's authority. Others questioned the legitimacy of Isabel's role. Public opinion divided, but the younger generation, the next wave of investors, rallied around her. They saw her as a symbol, proof that power could be challenged, infiltrated, reclaimed. But not everyone was cheering. Elliot re-emerged with a vengeance. He scheduled a private board vote to demand Carrington's resignation, citing scandal and instability. A second vote would determine Isabel's fate. I'm done playing quiet, he told reporters. Carrington Industries deserves transparency, not dynasty games. 2 days before the vote, Isabel received a package at her home. No return address. Just a flash drive and a handwritten message. He's not the only one with secrets. She plugged it in. Videos, emails, internal memos. Evidence of Elliot Blackwell embezzling funds from overseas development deals, fake vendors, ghost employees, offshore accounts. Isabel's blood ran cold. She had the weapon, but using it would come at a cost. She called Benjamin. If I leak this, Elliot's done. But Carrington might go down with him. Benjamin was silent for a moment. Then maybe it's time for the old kings to fall. The morning of the vote, Isabel entered the boardroom with calm fire. Before the chair could speak, she stood. I have new information, she said, relevant to the integrity of this company. She plugged in the drive, ejected the files. Silence followed, then gasps, then rage. Elliot stood, face pale, voice cracking. This is fabricated. Carrington stared at the screen, expression unreadable. The chairwoman turned to security. Escort Mr. Blackwell out. Effective immediately. As Elliot was dragged from the room, he pointed at Isabel. You think you've won? He spat. You're nothing but a shadow. A mistake. She looked him in the eye. Then maybe it's time mistakes ran the show. After the chaos, Carrington met her privately in the executive lounge. He poured 2 drinks. The ritual was familiar now. But something had shifted. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked tired. You burned the empire, he said. No, Isabel replied. I cleaned it. He nodded slowly. They're voting to name a new CEO. I know. You're one of the candidates. I know that too. He took a sip. You'll have enemies. I already do. He studied her. Would you take it, if offered? She answered without hesitation. Yes. For the first time, Richard Carrington smiled not out of pride, but out of something older. Surrender. Then do better than I did. The vote came 2 days later. 12 board members. 1 decision. Carrington stood at the end of the table, silent. Isabel sat across from him, back straight, heart pounding beneath her calm exterior. They called the names. 11 votes in. 6 in her favor. 5 against. Then the final name. The chairwoman looked around the room. As acting chair, my vote will break the tie. She glanced at Isabel, then at Carrington. My vote, she said clearly, is for Isabel Valdez. Isabel didn't react immediately. Her breath caught in her chest, and for a moment the silence swallowed everything. Then, applause. Staggered, uncertain, but real. Richard didn't clap. He stood, straightened his cuffs, and walked toward the exit. As he passed Isabel, he stopped for just a second. You have it now, he said. Be careful what you do with it. She met his eyes. I will. That's the difference between us. He nodded once, then disappeared through the doors. Her office changed overnight. The desk was larger, the view wider, the pressure heavier. Headlines exploded across media outlets. Illegitimate daughter becomes CEO of billion-dollar empire. Carrington legacy rewritten by hidden heir. From janitor's child to corporate queen. But none of it felt like victory. Not yet. Because the war hadn't ended, it had just changed form. Her first decision as CEO stunned the company. She reinstated the janitorial staff's benefits package that had been quietly stripped 5 years earlier. She hired 2 new women for executive mentorship, 1 black, 1 indigenous. Both brilliant, both overlooked. She canceled the Brazil expansion deal temporarily to investigate corruption risks. Some shareholders revolted, but most noticed something else. She was building, not destroying. Weeks later, she returned to the South Bronx, to the small apartment where she and her mother had lived. The peeling paint, the humming fridge, the silence. She sat on the old couch and opened a notebook, her mother's, full of names, quotes, prayers, and at the back, a single entry in red ink. If they never give you a place, take it anyway. She closed the notebook, hands trembling. Benjamin visited her that evening. He found her sitting alone in the boardroom, lights dimmed, staring out into the New York skyline. "You did it," he said gently. "No," she said. "I survived it." He poured 2 glasses of scotch, her father's favorite drink. They didn't toast, just drank in silence. "I'm naming you Koo," she finally said. He blinked. "You don't have to do that." "I do," she said, "because you're the only one who didn't try to use me." A pause. "And because I trust you." He smiled quietly. "Then I won't let you down." That weekend, she visited Richard. He was no longer in the penthouse or the tower. He'd moved into a private estate upstate. Fewer windows, more trees. He met her on the porch. "No tie, no glass in hand. You came," he said. "Not for you," she answered. "For her." He nodded. "I saw the article, the notebook quote. She wrote it when I was 6. Right after a rich man in a courtroom said I was unclaimed." Silence. "I did love her," he said. "In the beginning. Before fear took over. That fear made you rich. And made me a stranger." They sat for a while in the quiet. He finally asked, "Why come here now?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a single document. Her birth certificate. The original one. With his name. "I had the courts restore it." He nodded slowly. "Good." Then she ripped it in half. He flinched. "I don't need it anymore," she said. "I'm not looking for your name. Just closure." She left the torn halves on the porch and walked back to her car. Months passed. Carrington Industries became something new. The stock recovered. The staff changed. The culture shifted. People no longer whispered when Isabel entered a room. They listened. She launched a mentorship program for daughters of domestic workers and single mothers. She used her power to open doors others had kept locked. And yet she never forgot where she started. She kept the mop bucket from her first day in a glass case behind her desk, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. On the anniversary of her mother's death, she returned to the grave. She brought roses, not red, white, for peace. She stood alone for a while, then knelt. "I found him," she whispered. "He was everything you warned me about, and more." Tears stung her eyes. "But I didn't go there to ask him to be my father. I went to remind him that I'm yours." A breeze stirred the trees above her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt warm. That night, as she looked out from her penthouse balcony, a space that once belonged to Richard, she finally breathed, not as a daughter, not as a threat, but as a woman who rewrote the ending. From silence to legacy.